All right, Rafi, welcome to the podcast.
Thanks.
RR Racing, what do you do? I know what you do, but what do you do?
Well, about 5 years ago, we kind of ramped up our Lexus business, and we decided to really focus on the Lexus marketplace because we saw that there was just a complete lack of, serious performance focus in the market, and we love the cars, so it's genuinely like a passion of ours. We decided to focus initially on the ISF behind me, and our CFs came out. We also own an IS350, and we supercharge the V6 engines as well. We do suspension, forced induction, everything.
So really, you're a developmental company, and you guys have made so many cool things. We actually met through, if you guys saw, I did a Supercharged Lexus ISF. That was your guys' kit, and it was absolutely amazing. I'll leave a link to that video at the end because it's literally like 6 minutes of me just giggling. It's super, super fun. And the cool thing about it was that it didn't feel OEM power-wise, but definitely the integration of the system felt OEM. It felt like it was meant to be there, which was really, really cool.
Yeah, that's right. And that's what we do. We put a lot of development time into this, and sometimes it's hard to justify because I don't think people understand how few of these cars are out there. I mean, what I like to tell people is, just to put it into perspective, there are less ISFs out there, a lot less than there are Ferrari 458s. I mean, it's a much more rare car than a Ferrari 458. Same goes for the RCF. There's a far fewer RCFs out there than there are, any number of other exotic cars. So on the one hand, the market is small, and developing these things, whether it's a supercharger, whatever it might be, especially a more complex kind of system like that, does take a lot of effort and support. So that's our niche. That's what we decided to focus on, and we love these cars. That's what we love to do.
And so we'll definitely talk about the Porsche, because I love the Porsches, and there should be a video going out, I don't know if it's going to be before or after this podcast, of the dyno stuff, because that was a blast this morning. But why have you sort of gravitated towards the IS platform? What as a platform really draws you to Lexus vehicles?
Well, Lexus vehicles in general, we really set out to we were thinking of where we're going to focus the company. Now, clearly, there's a lot of people doing Corvettes, there's a lot of people doing Mustangs or BMWs or whatever it might be. So first and foremost, we wanted to do something unique. We also wanted to do something challenging that people haven't done before. They can't do it. They couldn't do it. And that's really where the challenge is, to do something that other people haven't been able to do. And to do something that's, really unique. These cars are unique. There aren't many out there. We're doing something that's very unique and it's quite challenging to do.
So walk me through the process of you're just driving one day and you have an idea for something, and then you start. What's your process from idea to actually selling the kit on the market?
I think it's a variety of things. Obviously, we listen to the customers and we try to see what they want. A lot of it is also, a lot of these cars we own, so I want it to be faster. We go to the track all the time. And that actually, a lot of times, the track is sort of the motivation for doing things. One of our very first products, which was the USRS, it's a bushing for the front suspension, and that was born out of a track day. We were at VIR. It was actually the very first track day we did with this blue ISF behind me. And I was going down the main straight, probably 150 or so, hit the brakes, and the car would just wander. The car was great in every other respect, but it would just wander. Another thing is you would notice outside tire wear in sort of aggressive driving conditions. So the first thing is we looked at the suspension. Well, what's wrong here? And identified what's wrong, fixed it. And that's, that was one of our first products, remains one of our most popular products, and people love it.
Yeah. So let's talk about the Superchargers on the 911s and stuff. So when you're like, all right, you've decided we're going to do a Supercharger kit, what's the next step? Do you lay out the piping? Do you see where it would fit? Do you do like, do you
Well,
try to pick out the right supercharger? What is that?
It actually begins with, looking at the market, seeing, what is there a market out there for what you're doing? Are you doing this for two people? Well, hopefully not, because then you're not going to be very successful. So number one is there a need? So what we saw is, yes, there is a need, because if you look at the 991 chassis, these cars are amazing cars, but they're normally aspirated, and there's only so much you can do. You can tune an NA car all day. I mean, it's not going to make a night and day difference.
Right.
So you got to go forced induction to get that power out of it. But it's not easy, and it takes a lot of time and development. It's not, I hope people understand that it's not like the car is at the shop for 2 weeks or 3 weeks and bang, it leaves the shop. And it's not like any of these TV shows where somebody is, under a time schedule of getting something done in 72 hours and it has to leave. No, this is like serious development projects, because it requires a lot of tuning, a lot of testing, and it's not just a hack. You really gotta test it. So you actually have to buy the car in many cases, because development effort for this car was something more like 8 months.
Okay, wow.
And that includes, the tuning, track testing, debugging, durability testing. We don't release typically a supercharger kit unless we do at least 10,000 miles on it.
Oh wow!
And that just takes time. In addition to the track testing, and sometimes things don't go quite right, so you have to go back and you have to do things, and it's a complex thing. Even when you do all the testing, sometimes things go wrong, so you have to take care of that.
So why do you tend to lean more towards superchargers as opposed to turbos?
Well, I think in the case of both of these cars, it's a little different actually. In the case of the ISF and RCF, I think people have asked us many times, "Oh, can you do twin turbo?" And twin turbo sounds nice. Unfortunately, you cannot fit properly two turbos in the engine compartment of these V8 cars. They're already cramped. You can barely get your hands in it. So to properly do a twin turbo setup, it should be up front near the engine. You can put them out back where the mufflers are, but I really view that as more of a hack, because it takes away from the responsiveness. You have about a mile of piping going around, and it's not like a real, legitimate sort of a thing to do. It can be done, but so that's why we didn't do it.
Of these two cars, I wouldn't think of the ISF not having enough space for the turbo.
Well, in the front, you can. When you open up the engine bay, you can't. There's not much space. The Porsche is different. So the Porsche, the thing is that, why do people love the normally aspirated Porsches? For two reasons. One is the power band, sort of a linear power band.
Right.
On turbo cars, you get a massive torque spike at the bottom, and there's a bit of a lag, but a lot of torque. And the other reason is the sound. And clearly, Porsche, I don't think will ever do a GT car that's turbocharged. And the reason is the sound. The sound is a big part of the experience. It's a big part of why you buy the car.
Right.
So when you supercharge an NA car like this, you don't change any of that. You don't even change the power band, in the sense that it still feels linear. It builds up linearly, and it sounds the same, except for a blow-off valve whooshing sound, which also sounds kind of nice. It still is linear, and it's actually, in many situations, especially if you're road racing a car, we prefer centrifugal superchargers, because it doesn't give you that massive low-end torque. It gives you a very linear, predictable power band, where you can legitimately drive these cars even with traction stability turned off. Whereas these very high torque cars, whether it's with a Eaton type blowers that make max boost at 3,000 RPM, or whether it's twin turbo setups that spool up very early and make massive low-end torque, they are very hard to control, and they depend on driving aids in order to make them manageable. Right. Otherwise, the torque spike is just too difficult to control in many situations. When you're on the racetrack.
Yeah, it was really cool. You showed me this morning the dyno graphs of the before Supercharger and after Supercharger, and that was really impressive to see. It had those sort of that same linearness to it. It literally was just raised up a little bit.
Yeah, exactly.
Which is huge for predictability and
Yes.
things like that, especially on track. Now, you actually just got back from tracking this car behind me. If you want to talk about that for a little bit.
Well, we've been tracked this car a number of times over the past year, and we put this kit out earlier this year. But we also made some enhancements. So this car is running our what we call stage 2 now, which is higher boost. We haven't released the power numbers yet, but we will soon. And we also tested our latest project, which is the Supercharged GT3, and this is the first supercharged 991 Carrera in the world, and you can't see it, it's out of the camera, but we have the first supercharged GT3 in the world.
Yeah, I wish you guys could see where I'm sitting because it is a beautiful view, along with everyone around it, I guess. So let's take a step back a little bit. How did you get into all this? How did you start all of this?
Well, unofficially it started a long time ago, in the same way that probably it starts out for many people. You just have a passion, you love to modify cars. And I was an engineer at Pratt & Whitney Aircraft Engines, and I just started, I had at the time, this is early 2000s, I had a 1997 Ford Probe GT, which
secretly a Mazda,
same as the Mazda MX-6 V6, and was, I still love the car. I don't have it anymore, but it was a great car at the time. Really, amazing car at the time, which nobody made anything for. And so it's kind of in keeping with my Lexus philosophy, which great car.
Yeah.
Nobody does anything for it. Why? And so it took a lot of development. I started the company at that time just as a part-time on the side thing, and it became very successful doing that. And I started tuning other cars, ECU tuning, that is, Subarus, and I did Turbo S2000s, Turbo BRZs, and right around 2015 it came time to, I had worked a long time already at Pratt & Whitney, and decided to do something different. And we decided to take the company full time, and I partnered with my brother, Simon. So basically we just kind of, I handle all the technical end of the company, and Simon does like operations and those kind of things. And we invested basically everything we have, and we decided to try to make a go of it with the Lexus market. And we put down our houses, our savings, everything we have, and just bit the bullet. And let's do it.
I think that's super interesting, and I'm wondering if you can give, because I think I know 100 different people that are like, oh, I want to open a shop one day. I want to open a shop one day. What are some tips you would have for people who are looking to open up a shop, like business-wise? Because I think a lot of people have, or at least know of, about cars and stuff, but I don't know almost anyone that can handle the business aspect of it and actually make it profitable.
It's very difficult to handle it. I think you find a lot of shops do good work, they perhaps become well known, and then they fail. And one of the reasons is that, you have to combine the business aspect of it with the technical aspect of it. There's many things that I would love to do on a daily basis. But at the same time, you have to always ask yourself, who am I doing this for? And we've done many things where, quite frankly, very difficult to justify. You're developing a new upgrade for a supercharger or whatever, and quite frankly, sometimes it's like, wait a second, are we doing this for two guys? And it's hard to justify that because it takes a lot of time and commitment, and what if it doesn't work out, and what if there are issues and things like that. So we've made those mistakes, and it happens. But generally speaking, though, if somebody's thinking about getting into this industry, I would warn them, because it's hard. It's very, very difficult industry to be profitable in. And in fact, our first couple of years, we did not make a profit. We did not have salaries even.
And I think that's not talked about enough because like a lot of people in my world, they're like, oh, I want to start YouTube because I have a phone with a camera on it.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, expect to not make money
For a while.
for probably, I always tell people 5 years. 5 years is about that limit where like, you're really not going to see much returns, and what you are, you're going to have to put back into the business.
Of course, there's always exceptions, and but given how much of an investment it is, it's people should think twice. But at the same time, you do things like this is one of these businesses. You do it because you love to do it.
Right.
And generally speaking, people I know in this business do it for that reason. Like I genuinely want to get up every day and go to work.
Yeah.
So. I could be making more money doing other things, but that's why we do it.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're risking a lot, and you're putting a lot on the line to do a business like this. And I'm not sure if people understand that.
Yeah.
I'm not sure people understand.
Yeah. It's not as easy as just opening up a garage door and saying, "Hey, bring whatever you have."
No, it's not. It's not that easy, and there's just a lot of investment that goes in.
Yeah. So for you, what's the most rewarding aspect of the business? Is it having the finished product? Is it finding a new market? Is it seeing, an ISF rip the skin off of a McLaren? Like,
I think it's when a couple things. One is we have a lot of customers that really appreciate us and become our friends. For example, like Nick Jarman.
Yeah.
You tested his ISF. Our history with him began way back when we started tuning ISFs. So I put a feeler out on the forums. I said, "Hey guys, I need everybody who's interested to data log their ISFs for me. We'll do the tune, and you can data log it afterwards because I want to get as much data as possible off as many ISFs." And Nick was one of those guys. And that's how we came to know Nick.
Yeah.
And we form these relationships with customers. That's very fulfilling. Especially when they're very happy with what they have and they go and track their cars. That's also very fulfilling. So, and the other thing is just creating something. And for me personally, when you start out with nothing, with these cars, nobody could do anything. Nobody could tune them, forget about supercharging them or properly doing any of those things. So when you create something out of where there was nothing, it's always very fulfilling.
Yeah. So, talking about like maintenance and things and like misconceptions. I know a lot of people have a lot of misconceptions about the superchargers and stuff, and I'm not even super familiar with them. I know. Do you have to change the oil in them and like things like that? I think that steers a lot of people away.
The Superchargers, we use Roadtrack Superchargers for the Lexus.
Okay.
And we use Prochargers for the Porsche.
Okay.
On the Porsche end of things, Prochargers and guys who have Mustangs with Camaros with them know it basically requires an oil change every time you change the engine.
Okay.
So not a biggie.
Yeah.
Roadtracks have a separate oil system with a cooler, and you can go tens of thousands of miles there without changing the oil. But there's pluses and minuses to both configurations, and that. I think most of it is. Most of the issue with superchargers is that you just have to be aware that although it's reliable, you can't treat it like a Lexus off the showroom floor.
Right.
So if you bought a Lexus with that mind frame that you simply want a car that will start up every morning and you do nothing to it for the next 10 years, everything will be, which is how a Lexus is.
Yeah,
that's quite frankly, that's why you buy a Lexus, right? So we like that idea, and that's one of the reasons we chose to go down a Lexus path, because it's a very dependable, robustly engineered car.
Right.
That's what makes it good as a modified car as well.
Right.
But you can't treat it as a car off the showroom floor. You have to respect it, you have to be more aware of certain things, and you have to look at your gauges. You have to be aware of when something unusual might be happening, that it would require a call to us and say, "Hey, Rafi, I'm seeing this. Is it normal?"
Yeah.
And so you just have to be aware of certain things. And if you are, then you get great life and amazing reliability, even at very high power levels. And that's one of their great attributes.
Because we were talking about this car has how many miles supercharged?
Well, this car has now slightly over 15,000 miles supercharged. And as far as Porsches go, this is a 70,000 mile car now,
Yeah.
which is very rare for these cars.
Yeah,
The customers that we get sending us these cars, I know we had one with like 15,000 miles, a 6-year-old car, a 5-year-old car.
Yeah.
Another one with 25,000 miles. So I mean, they don't get driven a lot. You're talking
Right.
typically they are fun cars that get driven maybe 5,000 miles or less a year.
Right.
And so if we can do that to this car, and we have yet to have any issues whatsoever, but if we can track it as we do, if we can put the mileage that we do on it, and it remains problem-free,
Yeah.
To us, that's just a testament to the reliability of the car, and makes us feel good about selling it to somebody because we know they're going to have a good experience with it.
So when you're tuning a vehicle, what are some goals that you have? Obviously make good numbers, but from what I've seen and everything, that's not the end-all be-all is the number.
No, that's. I think there's a lot. If you look at the car scene, and if you look at YouTube and other places, social media, a lot of people want to just come up with these wow numbers, like whatever Mustang with 1,300 horsepower and this and that. I think a lot of people don't really know the stories behind a lot of those cars, which I think would disappoint them quite a bit if they really knew the stories behind a lot of those cars. So, I think our goal is to have something that works, that genuinely works, not just to impress people, but that genuinely works. And we don't post anything until we know it works. So we're not, just because I did let's say ISF with 700 at the wheels, we're not going to post that until we know that's legitimate,
Right.
and it works,
been
and
duplicated.
we can track it, and it actually is a practical, legitimate product.
Right.
So we're not trying to impress people per se, just with pie in the sky kind of numbers and things like that. Just to do legitimate and practical kind of models.
Yeah, and I think the biggest thing that I've really noticed today is that like you guys definitely talk the talk with your numbers. Your numbers show really well, but you guys also walk the walk with tracking the vehicles. And I think that's huge to see from any shop at all.
Yeah, like for example, you saw the GT3 today on the dyno earlier today, and we haven't posted that anywhere. We haven't released that anywhere. We could have shown those numbers 4 months ago.
Yeah.
But to show numbers means nothing.
Right.
We have tested it on a dyno all summer. We have driven it, and we did 3 track days now at Watkins Glen. We just came back on Sunday, and that's what gave us the confidence to now say, all right, that's a legitimate product.
Right.
We took this car. The owner flew up here from Florida.
Yeah, which is awesome.
He beat the crap out of it for 3 days. The car performed. We had to make a few minor adjustments, mechanically perfect. Now we have a legitimate product.
Yeah.
Now we can talk about releasing the information, telling people about it.
Because you can say it with confidence. You can,
Absolutely.
say it with your chest.
Absolutely. And we had our doubts. For example, we didn't know, like, look, you're adding that much power to a GT3. Can you even take it around the track for a half an hour? Are you gonna overheat it?
Yeah.
What are your oil temperatures like? What's your coolant temperatures like? It was amazing.
That was very impressive this morning because you did quite a few pulls because I can't hear anything anymore.
Yeah.
But it actually, the car stayed very cool.
Yeah,
and it didn't
you can take it all day
overheat,
long.
The car didn't act like it was anything more than it was, even though it completely is.
It is, yeah, it is, and it doesn't. It's not a scary car, but it's got a lot of power, and it's got hundreds of pulls now on this dyno, the street stuff. And for example, we took it out to Watkins Glen. We drove up there Thursday night, 4.5 hours. We tracked it for 3 days, and the owner drove it back 4.5 hours without a single incident or mechanical issue whatsoever. And that is our goal. That is our goal. These are not trailer queens. These are not cars that are there just for show or for a YouTube video or anything like that. It's meant to be a substantive, practical, useful, trackable kit.
The fact that you guys drove it up there makes me feel like such a wimp when we try to load our spec Miata onto the trailer. It's this little 120 horsepower thing. And you guys are driving these monsters.
Yeah, we're just driving them, and it's unusual actually. I mean, a lot of the guys don't want to put miles on their cars or whatever, and they're coming with their trucks and they're coming with this, and that's fine. There's nothing wrong with that. But it's just, I think it's a testament to these cars that they can make it. Even the ISF behind me, I have never trailed it to a track.
Yeah. How many track days has this one done?
It's done, dozens of track days with the Supercharger. Probably, well over, probably just short of 40 track days. I would guess something like that.
And that's full track days. That's beating the snot out of it.
And it's 100% original. 100% original engine, 100% original transmission. There's no internal mods to this car, and it's never been taken apart. It is a 70,000 mile ISF with a lot of track time on it.
Is that pretty common that you'll see that when you put an ISF or a Supercharger on an ISF RCF, are unopened engines pretty common with the Lexus brand?
Yes, more so in the newer cars, in the RCFs. But just full disclosure, ISFs, we recommend all our customers do a compression test prior to deciding to do the Supercharger. And that came from some of our early experiences, like 4 years ago when we first introduced the kit. We found that some of the cars, especially those that had been tracked in very high heat without oil coolers, already indicate lower compression.
Okay.
Not necessarily below spec compression, but much lower compression than we would consider to be optimal.
Are there factory oil coolers in the ISF?
ISF has a factory heat exchanger, but it doesn't have an oil cooler.
Okay.
Whereas the RCF has both a heat exchanger and an oil cooler.
Oh, interesting.
So in that sense, I think in the long run, RCFs will be much better candidates if you're looking at, supercharging a 100,000 mile plus car. RCFs will be much better candidates for that. Whereas ISFs, you really do need to check compression. If you find that it's low, then there's a chance that you could have a ringland failure, which the ringland is the portion of the piston between the first and second compression rings. And all that happens, it's not a catastrophic engine failure by any means. It's not like a BMW expelling a rod out one end and making a big hole. It's a ringland failure. The car can even be driven like that if you have to. But what it requires is changing out the pistons.
Yeah. So walk me through the process. Let's say I have an ISF, I have an RCF, whatever it is, and I want your Supercharger kit. What's the process? What's step A through step Z to get my vehicle supercharged by you guys?
Well, I think step one is you just have to ask yourself, what's your budget? And in asking yourself that, you have to do the compression test. If you find the numbers are great, and it's especially if it's a lower mileage ISF, then your prospects for having a long...
What numbers would you consider is great? In
Well,
case anyone's running out of the garage to compression test.
First of all, you have to do the compression test right. So if you have any questions, let me know and I'll explain to you how to do it. But I'd say anybody, especially if you're over 200 PSI.
Okay.
Right? And that's great.
Yeah.
And especially if the car is, below 100,000 miles, you're going to have a great prospect of having a very reliable, supercharged, very powerful car. So that's the main consideration, I think. Now, if you have a higher mileage car and you want to supercharge that and the numbers are a bit lower, that's fine too. But just take it in your budget that at some point you might have to put in new pistons.
Okay.
And it's good to take that into account before you do things rather than get caught with, oh my God. I got the Supercharger, but now I don't have money to do that, and now this, that. So you don't want to be in this situation. So that takes some forethought, and in that case, everything will be fine, basically, as long as you are aware of the potential future expenses that you have.
So let's just say I have an ISF, numbers check out. What's my next step?
Generally speaking, we recommend people ship the car out to us, and as you saw today, we have cars from all over the place here. Yeah. And typically, we get them shipped all over the country. One of the reasons for that is a lot of times your local performance shop, well, not a lot of times, they almost always do not have experience with Lexus. Right. They have no clue how to log the car, how to tune the car. They're not familiar with the car. If you come to them with a Supercharger install, they'll be like, yeah, that's nice, but we probably won't get another one, so
Yeah.
they're going to want to charge you top dollar.
Right.
So generally, the most successful installs is usually the ones that we can do here. We've had many, very happy and successful installs of just guys who wrench in their garage doing it.
Right.
Because supercharger install, it's not difficult per se. It's tedious. It's just time consuming. And somebody who's meticulous and can work in their garage will do a perfectly fine job as well.
Right.
But it does require some experience and just being meticulous and with how you do things. And some of the best installs are like that.
Right.
We have customers that, problem free. And the nice thing is, because they've done the install, if anything happens, they know. No biggie. I just do this, I just do that. I can easily do that.
Right.
So there's an advantage to doing that. But if you're not inclined, then just the best thing is to send us the car.
So I send you the car, you guys supercharge it. How is my life different afterwards? Besides having this great, fantastic car, am I doing more maintenance? What's different about the car besides the
I
power?
wouldn't say like maintenance of the oil changes, those kinds of things are the same. It just gets back to what I was saying earlier, is you just need to be more aware. So all of our installs, we always have a wideband air-fuel ratio gauge in the car.
Okay.
We put that in all the installs. We highly recommend it. And what's important is when you're on full load and when you're really hitting it, that air-fuel ratio should be within a certain range.
Right.
And I talk to customers and it's in our instructions, and as long as that's the case, you will have a good, long, reliable life out of the car. And you need to be aware of that.
Yeah.
But so you see, it's not just, if you just buy a car off the factory floor, you don't have to look at gauges like that.
Right.
But in this case, it's an example of you needing to be more aware of what is actually.
And you just, I think that's a good way to put it. You just need to be aware, you don't have to be glued to the AFR.
Absolutely not.
But just
aware.
And
feel. You have to have a feel.
Right.
If the car normally feels strong and today it doesn't, do you keep pushing it? No, you don't. You have to start looking maybe at the gauge.
Yeah.
Or give us a ring and say, I'm feeling this. Is this normal? Is not? The answer might be, yeah, it's totally normal. It's fine.
Yeah.
So you just have to be more aware. That's the main thing. And if you are, it'll be okay.
So with the tuning and everything, what ECUs are you using? Like what goes into the actual tuning aspect?
The tuning is we tune stock ECUs.
Okay.
And one of the reasons is that, a couple of reasons. One is many of these cars you cannot install an aftermarket ECU. They have very complex CAN bus systems, so all the subsystems in the car, for them to operate properly, these have to communicate with each other, and all that happens through the network, and the ECU is an integral part of that network.
Yeah.
So you can't just unplug the ECU, put in something else, and hope that everything works. In some cases you can, but with some cars you can. But with these cars, and especially with a complex transmission control, that's not really an option for these cars.
Okay.
So we use the stock ECU, and it does require a lot of development for us. In the case of Lexus especially, because there aren't any you can't buy Ecutech. Like Ecutech is for Subaru, but you can't buy Ecutech for Lexus, per se. That's something that's really, or Honda for Honda. Those things, those software packages are really well tested, really well sorted out. So we have to figure out the stuff on our own, and just trial and error, a lot of it, and just experimentation.
So going back to the Supercharger kits for these two vehicles, when let's say I order my kit, I want to do it at my home. What comes in the kit, and what should I expect to also upgrade?
Well, in the case of if we start with the Porsche, we do recommend upgrading the exhaust. But other than that, you can just install the kit. No
fuel pump, injectors?
No. It does come with a supplemental fuel system.
Okay.
Which is controlled by another ECU. But most of the tuning is done with the factory ECU.
Okay.
So it comes with everything you need. The only thing you would need in addition to that is an exhaust upgrade. And that's also the case for the ISF and RCF. because stock exhaust becomes very restrictive under that kind of power.
Right.
So you do need to upgrade that. And other than that, with the Lexus, we recommend, like I said, the gauge. Having at least an air-fuel ratio gauge, and that's about all you really need. The kit itself comes with it.
And with the tuning, say I do the Supercharger at home, would I get sent the tune? How would I implement the tune?
It depends. Some of the cars are much more plug and play than others.
Okay.
ISF and RCF, for example, are very much plug and play. We send you the tune, and we highly encourage customers to data log it, whether from the very beginning or periodically or anytime they feel that something is changing or needs to be updated or doesn't feel quite right. So we do that. In the case of some of the other cars, the V6 cars require some additional tuning. So yes, we send out a tune. The customer data logs the car, sends it to us. We make adjustments. We send them a new tune, and we go through. It's an iterative process where we do that a couple of times, and then hopefully everything's fine.
So as we'll start wrapping up here, you have unlimited money. What are you building personally? What are you putting all your chips into?
Well, we love both of these cars. Regardless, it's not really a question of money or whatever it is. We have like a special connection with the Lexus side of things because that's how we got started. And Porsche is also something that's very special for us because it's a new area that we're going to, and we appreciate both of their cars for their unique.
Right.
They're very different.
But they both have their sort of unique appeal.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair. So where can people find your products? Where can people find all of your information?
Well, they just go to our website or, forums and groups, social media groups, whatever. They can read about it. And just contact us and get back to you.
Yeah, I think definitely if you guys are interested, give them a call. Just cold call. Ask them questions. You've been great all day. You fielded all of my dumb questions. And I really appreciate that. Guys, please go check them out. Thank you so much for taking the time. And I look forward to what we're going to do next.
Thanks for coming.
Thanks for listening, and I'll see you next episode. Take care.